So, good day, everyone. So, I'm going to talk about the Module 4 for the CA 200 Institutional Corrections. Uh, so, these are the contents or the topics, which is the institutional based corrections, structures, management, their standards, programs, services in the Philippines. So these cover the two system-based approaches to corrections, which is the institutional-based correction and the non-institutional or the community-based corrections. Then the Bureau of Corrections, RA 10575. So their custody, security, and control of prisoners, then the care and treatment of prisoners, then the release of prisoners, then we're going to talk about the good conduct time allowance or the GCTA, then the prohibited acts subjects to disciplinary actions, then the BJMP RA 6975 and Republic Act 9263. Then the treatment of special needs or unusual offenders, then the emergency plans, movement, transfer of prisoners or detainees, then the privileges of detainees and their sentenced prisoners. So this regards to their rights and privileges. Then the regional rehabilitation centers for youth, and then the child and youth welfare code, then the death row and the rule of the right of amparo. First is the institutional-based corrections, structures, management, standards, programs, and services in the Philippines. So there are two types of, as I said, there are two types of approaches in the Philippines, which is the institutional-based corrections and the non-institutional or the community-based corrections. So what is this? So first is the institutional. This refers to programs or strategy of sending offenders in jails and prisons to serve their sentences. So this is the typical one, while the non-institutional or community-based corrections is this refers to programs that provides treatments and rehabilitation while the person is reintegrated into the mainstream of society. Then, so what is the difference or and similarities of the two? So community and institutional based corrections have both similarities and differences. So the similarities in these two sanctions are that the individual is going through the treatment on the inside. So both approaches have their treatment is also on the inside and they are continuing it on the outside. So after they have treatments on the inside, which is the institutional, which is the institution. So after the treatment on the inside, they will also be receiving treatment from the outside. So it's not gonna stop on the inside. So the difference is community-based corrections are your either placed on parole or given probation. And institutional-based corrections means that the individual is placed in a prison or jail, which means they are housed in a secure correctional facility. So in the institutional, they will remain in the correctional facility, while sa community-based is they will be offered or tagan silang option that they have that they can get parole or they are given probation. So mag-continue ang ilang treatment or rehabilitation outside. Then the advantages and disadvantages of the of community correction program. So kani is non institutional. So advantage. Community corrections programs offer some distinct advantages. So the first is a cost issue. So compared to jail and prison, most community programs cost less. So since if na sila sa sulod sa jail or prison, is magasto ang government. If kung na sila sa community, dili kaayo dako ilang gasto. So offenders live at home. And in the small number of residential programs where the offender lives at the facility, they help subsidize the cost of living. So aside from cost issues, ma-decongest pod ang mga prison facility or correctional facility. So naay room for more people sa correctional facility. So in addition, offenders who remain in the community can continue financially supporting themselves. So they can also work outside the facility. Makakontinue sila trabaho and while being so they can financially support themselves and their family through receiving wages and paying taxes. They are also more likely than incarcerated offenders to compensate their victim through restitution and to complete community service. Then the disadvantage is that public safety may be compromised. So, what kabalo if katong nga person nga naa sa community-based correction is iyang buhaton usob ang iyang criminal acts. Like, if kawatan siya, then uta kabalo nga basig mangawat na po siya usob, muna ma-compromise ang public safety. So offenders are more easily able to continue criminal behavior than if they were confined in jail or prison. Kung naa sila sa jail or prison, ma-monitor sila sa mga guards, sa mga police officers, so dili po kuan pod kanang mabantayan ilahong mga actions. While if naa ka sa gawas, nara ka sa balay, dili kaayo nila malantaw sige imong actions. So nay possibility ang katong criminal matintal siya to do criminal behaviors. So mahimo siya kanang repeater siya nga offender. So corrections management. So elements of correction management in the Philippines: staff development released under supervision, implementing programs and classification and categorizing of inmates. So muna ilang management. So staff development, then release under supervision muna ilang mga flow sa ilang management sa ilang organization. They classified and categorized inmates para dili maglibog kung kinsa ni mga inmates. The discussion of staff development describes courses included in a 1-week orientation and in-service training, which extensively reviews general policies, rules, and regulations and correctional services. So ilang i-train or i-orient ang mga staff nila, ilang mga employees. So the courses describe our orientation training, basic custodial procedures, correctional administration and treatment, leadership, supervision techniques in the correctional service, senior management for penal institutions, and clerical development. A section of on release under supervision gives primary attention to parole. So, ang mga employees nila is i-orient and training. So, makabalo sila sa mga basic custodial procedures, and then unsaan nila ang flow sa ilang management. So the program of preparation for parole is basically designed to enhance the possibility of successful reintegration into society. So mag-prepare po sila for parole kung kinsa tong deserving nga makakuha og parole para ang reintegration sa isa ka inmate is successful. Dili siya kuan kanang hatag ra kag parole bisag kinsa din pagkuan after pila ka months or years mobalik siya sa prisuhan kay nagbuhat di maayo sa gawas. So, objectives of the overall rehabilitation program in prisons are to provide inmates with the basic vocational skills required for employment upon release. So, kung vocational skills mo ni ang mga kanang mga skills nga gitudlo nila nga paggawas nila makakuha sila trabaho kanang pananglitan, carpentry basig tudloan sila sa sulod then paggawas nila kabalo kamao na sila mag-carpentry. So, naay high chance na madawat sila for magpanday sila. So, makakwarta sila. So, provide gainful activities for inmates while in prison. So, ilang stay sa sulod sa correctional facilities, dili siya ma-waste. So, magamit yun ang mga skills nila. And then, they will also have kanang mga activities inside like exercising, mga unsa pa dira nga activities that will be useful when they get out of prison. So develop good working habits and positive attitudes. So tudluan pud sila mga pamatasan and right way to behave. And help inmates develop self-esteem and responsible independence. So, self-explanatory na to siya. So, standards. The Philippines adheres to the provisions of the UN Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners and UN Standard Minimum Rules for Non-Custodial Measures, so the Tokyo Rules, and other international human rights instruments which define and guarantee the rights of inmates. Some of these provisions are already embodied in the Philippine Constitution and its laws, rules and regulations and ordinances. So, Section 2, Article of the Constitution, moreover, provide that the Philippines adopt the generally accepted principles of international laws. So, since 1954, the American Correctional Association has published operational standards designed to enhance correctional practices for the benefit of inmates, staff, administrators, and the public. So, useful ang kaning mga standards nila para maka-benefits pod ang inmates, staff, administrators, and the public. So, dili lang kay ang mga inmates ra, pati na pod ang public. So, this includes dedicated manuals for the operation of differing facility types, including prisons, jails, juvenile correctional facilities, juvenile detention facilities, probation, parole agencies, halfway houses, and others. So similarly, ACA publishes standards for correctional programs that impact multiple facilities. So ang standards nila is kana ganing maayo kanang upgraded ang facility nila, dili lang kay usa siya ka facility to house mga criminals. It is also to be productive ang ilang standards. So they are aiming to have international standards facilities. So programs that impact multiple facilities such as correctional industries, manufacturing programs, food service, electronic monitoring, therapeutic communities, and central office administration. So the ACA standards have served to establish a fundamental operational structure for facilities. Mo ni siya ilang standard which is to have the fundamental operational structure. sa agencies, both agencies and facilities that have implemented them. So ACA standards interface with all aspects of operation, including safety, security. So standards for the safety of the prisoners and the staff, the standards for the order, the care, and the programs, and the justice and the administration. So muna na ilang standard sa particularly in Philippines. ECA standards guide operations in every area of the facility or agency. Secure facilities such as jails and prison must operate effectively as self-contained communities in which all necessary goods and services are provided in a safe, secure, and controlled manner. So, ang ilang standard is dili magka-wakat dapat ang isa ka facility. Dapat kuan siya kanang good quality nga standard. So, kani so muni ang institutional programs. So first is the prison education. So the cornerstone of rehabilitation, it is the process or result of formal training in school or classrooms intended to shape the mind and attitude of prisoners towards good living upon their release. So, tagaan silag education inside the prison or jail. So, classes of prison education. So, the first one is the general and academic education. So, the objective of which is to eradicate illiteracy among prisoners. So, for example, if they have a prisoner who don't know how to read or how to write, then they will provide the education for him or her so that he will or she will be able to kanang makabalo na siya kabalo na siya mo basa o musulat even though it's basic. So general education na siya. Vocational education is the purpose of which is to provide prisoners necessary skills for successful works in a socially acceptable occupation after the release. So auto mechanics, shoemaking, tailoring, carpentry, they will provide this kind of trainings or school nga ilang i-integrate or implement inside the prison para makamao ang mga prisoners how to make something. For example, shoemaking, kabalo na sila mo ayo og shoe, sapatos. So paggawas nila sa prison is naay mo hire nila nga magamag sapatos. So muna siya ang vocational education. So physical education. So work programs, it is purposely to eliminate idealness on the part of prisoners which may contribute to prison stopper, and it affects the incidents of prison riots. So mag-workout sila sulod kanang physically fit na sila ana mag-exercise sila sulod para dili pud ma-bored sige ang mga prisoners kanang sige ra sila work sige lang kuan. So dapat magkuan pud sila kanang magdula or like basketball, mga sports, then religious services in prison. So the purpose of this program is to change the attitudes of inmates by inculcating religious values or beliefs. So naay mga pastors or mga priests na musulod sa mga prisuhan para magmas inana mag-talk sa mga prisoners. So 4 is recreational programs, kanini mga recreational activities, medical and health services, then counseling and casework. So the Bureau of Corrections, RA 10575. So, custody, security, and control of prisoners. So, kani is an act strengthening the Bureau of Correction or BUCOR and providing funds thereof. So be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines in Congress assembled. So Section 1 is this act shall be known as the Bureau of Corrections of Act of 2013. So Section 2, Declaration of Policy. It is the policy of the state to promote the general welfare and safeguard the basic rights of every prisoner incarcerated in our national penitentiary. It also recognizes the responsibility of the state to strengthen the government capability aimed towards the institutionalization of highly efficient and competent correctional service. So, muna siya. And then, so towards this end, the state shall provide for the modernization, so professionalization and restructuring of the Bureau of Corrections. So, improve ang BUCOR. Sa una, di ba, ang name sa BUCOR is Bureau of Prisons. Karon na siya Bureau of Corrections. So by upgrading its facilities, increasing the number of its personnel, then upgrading the level of qualifications of their personnel, and standardizing their base pay, retirement, and other benefits, making it at par with that of the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology. So gi-upgrade nila ang kaninga bureau. So section 3, definition of terms. So first that we'll define is safekeeping. So safekeeping, which is the custodial component of the BUCOR's present corrections system, so shall refer to the act that ensures the public, so including the families of inmates and their victims, that national inmates are provided with their basic needs. So shelter, then food and water na dito, and then clothes. So muna mga basic needs. Completely incapacitated from further committing criminal acts and have been totally cut off from their criminal networks or in contacts in the free society. So while serving sentence inside the premises of the National Penitentiary. So this act also includes protection against illegal organized armed groups which have the capacity of launching an attack on any prison camp of the National Penitentiary to rescue their convicted comrade or to forcibly amass firearms issued to prison guards. So reformation, which is the rehabilitation component of the BUCOR's present correction system, shall refer to the acts which ensure the public, including families of inmates and their victims, that release national inmates are no longer harmful to the community. So dili na siya ang katong nga tawhana is dili na siya harmful nga tawo pagawas niya sa prison, because katong nga tawhana is na-reform na siya inside sa prison or jail. So by becoming reformed individuals prepared to live a normal and productive life upon reintegration to the mainstream society. So section 4, the mandates of the Bureau of Corrections. The BUCOR shall be in charge of safekeeping, instituting reformation programs to national inmates sentenced to more than 3 years. So, safekeeping of national inmates. The safekeeping of inmates shall include decent provision of quarters. So naa sila ilang ilang mga cell. Food, water, and clothing in compliance with established United Nations standards. So ang standards sa United Nations is tagaan sila proper nga cell, na sila food, then napod sila water and clothes. So the security of the inmates shall be undertaken by the custodial force consisting of corrections officers with a ranking system and salary grades similar to its counterpart in the BJMP. So ang mohawak aning mga inmates, kanang security sa mga inmates is ang ginatawag nga custodial force, which is mga corrections officers. So reformation of national inmates. The reformation programs which will be instituted by the Bucor for the inmates shall be the following. So moral and spiritual program. So naa sila programs that will enhance their morality and their spirituality. Mo reconnect sila sa ilang morality para mauna-una nila nga saip to akong gibuhat, dili na ako ni usbon, nana. So education and training program. So katong mga wala sila ka receive og education sa gawas, diri at least ginagmay lang maka-receive sila og education and training program. Then work and livelihood program. So muni makakwarta sila ni tagaan sila training courses or education courses na kaning mga livelihood like katong shoemaking, tailoring, carpentry, then sports and recreation program. So, di ba, if mapriso man siya, so boring kayo sa kuan, sige ra sila, nara sila sige prisuhan. So, they have this program na at least ma-exercise, ma-stimulate ilang mentality para ma-healthy pud sila, dili sila kanang galuya sa sulod. So, na sila sports and recreation program. Then health and welfare program for napod sila clinic inside the prison or hospital, and behavior modification program to include therapeutic community. Then C is the reformation programs. The reformation programs shall be undertaken by professional reformation personnel consisting of corrections technical officers with ranking system and salary grades similar to corrections officers. So the corrections technical officers are personnel employed in the implementation of reformation programs and those personnel whose nature of work requires proximate or direct contact with inmates, I mean. So ang kaning mga reformation programs, they are supervised or managed by the professional reformation personnel. So muni ang mga corrections technical officers. So corrections technical officers include priests, evangelists, pastors, teachers, instructors, professors, so vocational placement officers, librarians, guidance counselors, physicians, nurses, medical technologists, pharmacists, dentists, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, then mga sociologists, social workers, engineers, and electricians, agriculturists, and then veterinarians, lawyers, and similar professional skills relevant to the implementation of inmate reformation program. So kaning mga priests, evangelists, pastors, mga kuan ila kanang i-reform sila, i-reform ang mga inmates sa ilang behavior, sa morality and sa spirituality. So section 5, operations of the Bureau of Correction. So the Bucor shall operate with a directional structure It shall undertake reception of inmates through its Directorate for Reception and Diagnostics, which is the DRD. Formerly Reception and Diagnostic Center, or RDC, provide basic needs and security through its Security and Operations Directorate. So administers reformation programs through its reformation directorates and prepare inmates for reintegration to mainstream society through its Directorate for External Relations, formerly External Relations Division. Then, the DRD shall be responsible for the conduct of classification of each and every inmate admitted to the Bucor. So, maklasify and ma-identify nila ang mga inmate nga na-admit sa Bureau of Corrections. So, inmates shall be classified according to security risk and sentence. So, if gamay ra sila, maklasify, if gamay ra ila sentence, maklasify sila. Then, if dako ilang sentence, like life imprisonment ba ilang iserve na sentence, then maklasify sila as such. Then risk, security risk, kanang security risk, which means if violent sila nga, aggressive or violent sila nga na kind of inmate. Then katorang mga dili kaayo violent, which is maklasify pod sila. Included in the classification is determining inmates' certain skills or talents, physical, spiritual, social, mental, and psychological evaluation, and other behavioral assessments. As reference of the DRD in the preparation of individual inmate reformation programs. Then, see. Aside from those born of the provisions under Rule 8, Part 1, Rules of General Application of the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, and that of the existing regulation of the Bucor on security classification. So, that is maximum, medium, and minimum security risk. So, inmates shall also be internally classified by the DRD and segregated according to crimes committed based on the related penal code, such as crime against person. So, kung imong gi-commit nga crime is crime against persons, crime against properties, crimes against chastity, and so on and so forth. So, kung dako kayo yung crime, mag-classified ka as such. If dili ra kay dako imong crime nga na-commit, so you will be classified as such. As well as by other related special laws, customs, and immigration laws. So from the DRD, the custodial force and reformation personnel of respective security institutions, camps, shall be in charge for the security and the implementation of the recommended inmate reformation programs. So of each and every inmate while serving sentence respectively. So the Directorate for Internal Relations, or DER, shall be responsible for pre-release and post-release programs of inmates due for release. So sila mo'y bahala ani, sila mo'y mag-manage. Then the DER shall also classify inmates according to skills acquired from referral and endorsement to appropriate companies or corporations participating in the Bucor on-the-job training programs for newly reformed inmates. So, if maayo po kang naa po kay skills in kanang mga woodworks, maayo kag mga inana, kanang kamao ka na kay skills. So, you will be classified nga in anak ka imong mga skills. So, nay dako nga chance nga ma-accept ka into mga companies. Apart from handling inmates, the Bucor shall administratively operate like a standard government agency through its administrative directorates with internal control and internal audit units. So the Bucor shall employ full computerization in the build-up, maintenance, transmittal of necessary inmate records to all its prison and penal forms and other recipient agencies. So that is the Board of Pardons and Parole. So Section 6, which is lands of the Bureau of Corrections. So aside from administrative purposes, all Bucor lands shall be used for inmate security, reformation programs, and as a means to promote sustainability. So muna ang mga kanang sa penal farms, himuon nila kanang magtanom sila sa ilahong land. Then muna siya ma-use na siya as also to provide mga needs nila. So both for income and non-income generating program. So when it say income, so kanang mga programs nila nga maka-income ang not just the inmates but also the organization. So with or without partnership among non-government organizations, since some companies or corporates are partnering with the correction facilities or this penal institution or ang kaning organization for programs lagi like profitable programs. So civic organizations or other government entities. So as a way to maximize its assets value for the effective and extensive reformation or corrections programs for national inmates, the Bucor shall have the absolute authority to design, formulate, implement land use development plans and policies. Muni ilahong power to maximize their assets value. So sila mo'y bahala kung unsaon nila ang katungalan. Moon ba nilag hospital ba? Moon ba nilag another building for the accommodation of inmates? Nana. Then the Bucor may propose additional penal forms as may be necessary as possible. So kung necessary na gyud nga kuan sila, so ang Bucor mag-build sila for additional penal forms. So aside from its existing 7 prison and penal forms, so muni ang katong New Bilibid Prison muna siya. Then so the 7 prison and penal farms to decongest existing penal institution. So kung dili na gyud madala kanang puno na kay tong 7 ka penal farms of tong 7 prison, so they will be kanang ma-force sila into making or to add another penal farm. So to accommodate the increasing number of inmates committed to the agency. So all Bucor lands shall have a certificate of title registered under its name. So ang tag-iya ani is ang Bureau of Corrections. Then Section 7, facilities of the Bureau of Corrections. The Bucor shall operate with standard and uniform design of prison facilities, reformation facilities, and administrative facilities through all the operating prison and penal farms such as the following. So na sila dormitory, administration building, then perimeter or security fences, hospital or infirmary. Then they also have recreation or a multi-purpose hall, then training lecture center, workshop facility, mess hall or kitchen, visiting area. Then they have water tank and pump. Then reception and diagnostic center, and lastly the service personal facilities. So in Section 8, supervision of the Bureau of Corrections. The Department of Justice, or the DOJ, having the Bucor as a line bureau and a constituent unit, shall maintain a relationship of administrative supervision with the latter as defined under Section 38 to Chapter 7, Book 4 of Executive Order Number 292. So, Administrative Code of 1987, except that the DOJ shall retain authority over the power to review, reverse, revise, or modify the decision of the Bucor in the exercise of its regulatory or quasi-judicial functions. So, ang supervision sa Bureau of Corrections will be under the Department of Justice. So sila mo'y murag kuya, sila ang kuya nga department sa Bureau of Corrections. If naaman, they can revise, they have review or revise or modify the decision of the Bucor. So muna na sila power to revise ang mga decision sa Bucor. So Section 9 is organization and key positions of the Bureau of Corrections. So A is the Bucor shall be headed by a director who shall be assisted by 3 deputy directors. One is for the administration. Excuse me. One is for the administration, one for the security and operations, and one for reformation. So all of whom shall be appointed by the President. So upon the recommendation of the Secretary of the DOJ, provided that the director and the deputy directors of the Bucor shall serve a tour of duty not to exceed 6 years from the date of appointment. So ang head sa Bucor is called the director, then will be assisted by 3 deputy directors. So provided further that in times of war or other national emergency declared by Congress, the President may extend such tour of duty. So for example, kanang director siya, then hapit na mauman iyang term. Then naay emergency which is kanang naay war. So dili dayon nga pwede siya nga maka-resign or ubaba siyang pwesto, but ang president is moingon siya dito nga pa-extendon siya, so wala siya mabuhat but to serve or to kanang mag-duty siya, so ma-extend iyang work. So the head of Bucor with the rank of Undersecretary shall have the position and title of Director General of Corrections. So the second officers in command of the Bucor with the rank of Assistant Secretary shall have the position and title of Deputy Directors of Corrections. Then the third officer in command of the Bucor with the rank of Chief Superintendent shall have the position and title of Corrections Chief Superintendent. So the fourth officer in command of the Bucor with the rank of Senior Superintendent shall have the position and title of Corrections Senior Superintendent. Then the fifth officer in command of the Bucor with the rank of Superintendent shall have the position and title of Corrections Superintendent. The Department of Budget and Management, or the DBM, shall rationalize the existing organizational structure and staffing pattern of Bucor in accordance with the provisions of his act and relevant compensation and position classification laws, rules, and regulations. Then section number 10, increase of personnel. So the Bucor shall maintain the custodial personnel to to inmate ratio of 1, so 1 custodial personnel to 7 inmates, and reformation personnel to inmate ratio of 1 to 24 inmates. So hence it is authorized to increase its manpower to meet such ratio and may continue to increase personnel per percentage rate increase of committed inmates. So if magkadagan ng mga inmates, so magkadagan po ang mga i-employ nila na mga personnel. So section 11, professionalization and upgrading of qualification standards in the appointment of the Bucor personnel. So no person shall be appointed as personnel of the Bucor unless one possesses the following minimum qualifications. So if you want to be called what's the name? Bucor personnel, you shall have the minimum qualifications. If wala ka ni, then you are not qualified to be a Bucor personnel. So first qualification is a citizen of the Republic of the Philippines. So you must be a citizen of the Philippines, then a person of good moral character. So then must have passed the psychiatric, psychological, drug, and physical tests for the purpose of determining his or physical and mental health. So if hagbong ka sa imong psychiatric or psychological nga test, then you are not qualified or will be disqualified for the application. So dapat healthy imong mental health, then healthy po ka physically. Then 4 is must possess a baccalaureate degree from a recognized learning institution, then must possess the appropriate civil service eligibility. Then 6 is must not have been dishonorably discharged or dismissed for a cause from previous employment. So, for example, you are serving sa military, then discharge ka dishonorably. So, dili ka good for the organization, dili ka madawat, so ma-disqualified imong application. Then must not have been convicted by final judgment of an offense or crime involving moral turpitude. So dapat imong history is wala kay criminal record. Dapat limpyo gyud na imong record. Wala kay nabuhat nga mga binuang sa una, then you are good for the organization. So number 8 is must have at least 1 meter and 62 centimeters. So 1.62 meters in height for the female, for the male. Kaning 1 meter and 62 centimeters will be the height for the male. Muna ang minimum sa height sa boys or sa males. So if under imong height ana, then dili ka madawat. And 1 meter and 57 centimeters for the female. So 1.57 meters. So kung maba pa ka ana, dili gyud ka magkalisod kag sulod sa Bucor. So provided that a waiver for height and age requirements may be granted to applications belong to the cultural communities. So provided further that a new applicant must not be less than 21 or more than 40. So dapat dili ka underage aning 21 kay if you are 20, 19 ana, 20 ka, 19, 18, then dili ka nila dawaton. If 20 ka and above, but dili mo exceed sa 40 years of age. So, except for this particular provision, the above enumerated qualifications shall be continuing in character in an absence of any one of them at any given time shall be ground for separation. So, dili din day ka disqualified but for separation ka. kung naay sa kaning sa mga gimension nako is wala ka naka abot ani, so or retirement from the service. So provided further that those who are already in the service upon the effectivity of this act shall be given 5 years from the date of such effectivity to obtain the minimum educational qualification and eligibility with subsidiary assistance as provided for in this act. So after the lapse of the period for the satisfaction of a specific requirement, incumbent personnel of the Bucor who fail to satisfy any of the requirements enumerated under this section shall be separated from the service if they are below 50 years of age and have served in the government for less than 20 years, or retired if they are 50 years and above, have served in the government for at least 20 years without prejudice in either case to the payment of benefits they may be entitled to under existing laws. Then for sustained professionalism in the service, the Bucor is directed to conduct study for the feasible in establishment of the Philippine Corrections Academy, patterned after the Philippine National Police Academy or the PNPA of the Philippine National Police, the PNP, and the Philippine Military Academy or the PMA of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, which is AFP for its commissioned officers. So the Bucor shall continue training its personnel through its Personnel Training School, which shall be renamed as Corrections Training School Institute, patterned after the BJMP's Jail National Training Institute. So kaning Bucor day ni pattern or ni suwidra sila sa BJMP. The Bureau of Fires Nation, the Bureau of Fires National Training Institute or FNTI, and the PNP's National Training Institute. So Section 12, appointment of personnel to the Bucor. So the appointment of the Bucor shall be effected in the following manner. So kani Corrections Officer 1 to Corrections Chief Superintendent. So appointed by the Director General of Corrections and attested by the Civil Service Commission. Then ang Director General of Corrections and Deputy Director of Corrections. So appointed by the President upon the recommendation of the Secretary of the DOJ with the proper endorsement by the Chairman of the CSC or Civil Service Commission. Then the lateral entry of officer into the Bucor. So in general, all original appointments of the officers in the Bucor shall commence with the rank of corrections inspector, wherein application for lateral entry with the Bucor shall include all those highly specialized and technical qualifications such as, but not limited to, civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, the chemists, architects, criminologists, and so forth. So kaning doctors of medicine members of the Philippine Bar and chaplain shall be appointed to the rank of corrections senior inspector in their particular technical service. So Section 14, professionalization and upgrading of qualification standards in the designation of personnel of the Bucor to the key position. So first is, no person shall be designated to the following key positions of the Bucor unless one has met the qualification provided. So muni, Sub-colony supervisor should have the rank of senior inspector who must have finished at least second year Bachelor of Laws or earned at least 12 units in a master's degree program in management, public administration, public safety, criminology, penology, sociology, national security administration, defense studies, or other related disciplines from a recognized institution of learning and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training or career courses for such position as may be established by the Bucor. Then, ang colony assistant superintendent. So, should have the rank of chief inspector, who must have finished at least second year Bachelor of Laws or earned at least 24 units in a master's degree program. So sa sub-colony supervisor 12 units, while sa colony assistant superintendent at least 24 units. So sa colony superintendent should have the rank of superintendent, who must be a graduate of Bachelor of Laws or a holder of a master's degree. So in management, public administration, public safety, criminology, penology, sociology, national security administration. So kung sa colony superintendent is dapat graduate siya. While sa colony assistant superintendent must at least second year, must finish at least second year sa Bachelor of Laws. While kani colony superintendent must be a graduate of Bachelor of Laws or a holder of a master's degree. So kaning administration, defense studies, and other related disciplines from a recognized institution of learning and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training or career courses for such positions as may be established by the Bucor. So provided that in prison and penal farms with an inmate population of 2,000 but below 3,000, the colony superintendent shall have the rank and qualification of a colony senior superintendent. And the regional superintendent should have the rank of senior superintendent or chief superintendent and must be a graduate of Bachelor of Laws or a holder of a master's degree in management, public administration, parehara sila, and must have satisfactorily passed the necessary training or career courses for such position must be established by the Bucor. So provided that in prison and penal farms with an inmate population of 3,000 but below 5,000, kaning sa colony superintendent is sa 2,000 with an inmate population of 2,000 but below 3,000, sa regional superintendent with a population of at least 3,000 but below 5,000. The regional superintendent shall have the rank and qualification of a colony senior superintendent. So provided further that in prison and penal farms with an inmate population of over 5,000, the regional superintendent shall have the rank and qualification of a chief superintendent. Then any personnel of the Bucor who is currently occupying such position but lacks any of the qualifications mentioned therein shall be given 5 years to comply with the requirements. So otherwise the personnel shall be relieved from the position. Section 15, the Professionalization and Qualifications Upgrading Program. So the DOJ shall design and establish a professionalization and qualifications upgrading program for personnel of the Bucor in coordination with the CSC and the Commission of Higher Education, so ang CHED, through an off-campus education program or other similar programs with 90 days from the effectivity of this act. Then in section 16, attrition system for the personnel of the Bucor. There shall be established a system of attrition for the personnel of the Bucor within 5 years from the effectivity of this act. So to be submitted by the said bureau to the DOJ for approval, such attrition system shall include but is not limited to the provision of the following principles. So many attrition by demotion in position or rank. So any personnel of the Bucor who is relieved and assigned to a position lower than what is established for the grade in the respective staffing pattern and who shall not be assigned to a position commensurate to one's grade within 2 years after such demotion and position shall be separated or retired from the service. Ang B is attrition by non-promotion. So any personnel of the Bucor who has not been promoted for a continuous period after often 10 years shall be separated. So if wala ka na promote within 10 years ng ilang gihatag, you will be separated or retired from the service. So ma-separate ka, ibalin ka sa lain nga position or lugar. So or even retired from the service, except for those who are occupying a third level position. So, attrition by other means. Any personnel of the Bucor with at least 5 years of accumulated active service shall be separated from the service based on any of the following factors. So, inefficiency based on poor performance during the last two successive semestral rating periods. So, if nakuan ka ani, then you will be separated from the service. Then 2 is inefficiency based on poor performance for 3 cumulative semestral rating periods. So number 3 is physical and other mental incapacity to perform one's duties and function. So if dili ka wala kay capacity, if you are mentally incapable or physically incapable, then to perform your duty, then you will be separated. So failure to complete the required career courses and or appropriate civil service eligibility for his or her position, except for justifiable cause or reason. Then separation or retirement from the Bucor under this section. So any personnel who is dismissed from the Bucor pursuant to the above enumerated principles in this section shall be separated if one has rendered less than 20 years of service, and be retired if one has rendered at least 20 years of service, unless the concerned personnel is disqualified by law to receive such benefits. So promotion system for the personnel of the Bucor. Within 6 months after the effectivity of this act, the Bucor shall establish a system of promotion for the personnel of the Bucor through the following principles. So, Manila ilang promotion system for the personnel of the Bucor. So, rationalize promotion system. So, this system of promotion shall be based on merit and on the availability of vacant ranks in the Bucor staffing pattern. So kung naay vacant ka ranks, then maybe you will be promoted. And if daghan ka merit, then you will be promoted. So such system shall be gender fair. So wala ni siya gender inequality nga organization. Kay gingon man diri ho. Such system shall be gender fair so as to ensure that women personnel of the Bucor shall enjoy equal opportunity for promotion as to men. So equal ra ang ilang panglantaw sa both both women and men. Then requirements for promotion. So any personnel of the Bucor shall not be eligible for promotion to a higher rank unless one has met the minimum qualification standards or the appropriate civil service eligibility set by the CSC and has satisfactorily passed the required psychiatric and psychological, drug, and physical tests. So any personnel of the Bucor who has exhibited acts of conspicuous courage and gallantry at the risk of one's life above and beyond the call of duty, kung mo perform sila ganing out na sa ilang duty, then or selected as such in a nationwide search conducted by any accredited civic organization shall be promoted to the next higher rank. So kanang example kanang naay situation nga dili na nimo kaya sa imong duty, like dili na sakop sa imong duty but still imong gi-perform because of personal reasons. So you will be credited, ma-honor ka sa organization. So naay chances nga ma-promote ka. So provided that these shall be validated by the DOJ and the CSE based on established criteria. So section 18. Performance evaluation system. So there shall be established a performance evaluation system which shall be administered in accordance with the rules, regulations, and standards, and a code of conduct for the personnel of the Bucor to be promulgated by the Bucor through the DOJ. Such performance evaluation system shall be administered in such a way as to foster the improvement of the individual efficiency and behavioral discipline, as well as the promotion of organizational effectiveness and commitment to public service. So the rating system, as contemplated herein, shall be based on standards prescribed by the Bucor through the DOJ and shall be considered the result of the manual psychiatric or psychological and physical tests conducted on the personnel of the Bucor. Then ang section 9 is standardization of the base pay and other benefits of the uniformed personnel of the Bucor. So in order to enhance the general welfare, commitment to service, and professionalism, so para ma-inganyo ganing mga employees, they are offering or give sila mga benefits para sa mas maayo ang performance sa isa ka employee. So the following are considered uniform personnel of the Bucor. So the DBM shall determine the equivalent rank of the uniform personnel of the Bucor patterned after the existing ranks of the military and uniform personnel of other departments. So the base pay, allowances, and other benefits of the above mentioned personnel shall be in accordance with the existing compensation and position classification laws and regulation. Then, retirement benefits. So, upon compulsory retirement, any custodial officers from the rank of corrections, chief superintendent, and below shall be entitled to retirement benefits. So, if mo retire na ka, naabot kay the benepisyo na madawat. So, computed on the basis of one grade higher than the position last held. So, provided that the retirement pay shall be subject to the adjustments based on the prevailing scale of base pay of the uniformed personnel in the active service. Then, funding source. The funds required for the implementation of this act, including personal benefits, shall be taken from the budget of the Bucor for the current fiscal year and also from the following. So collections from clearances and certification fees. So income from institutional projects subject to memoranda of agreements or MOAs, contracts or joint venture agreements, and then other miscellaneous income. So outside MOAs and contracts such as the penal farm agro production, since namang madawat ng the organization anang sa mga penal farms. Then, and inmate handicraft industry. So makadawat po sila money ana. Thereafter, such amounts as may be necessary to implement this act shall be included in the annual General Appropriation Act. So, Section 22, Implementation. The implementation of this act shall be undertaken in staggered phases, but not to exceed 5 years, taking into consideration the financial position of the national government, provided that any partial implementation shall be uniform and proportionate for all ranks. Then, implementing rules and regulation. So, ang DOJ, coordination with the Bucor, CSC, and DBM, Department of Finance or DOF, shall within 90 days from the effectivity of this act promulgate the rules and regulation necessary to implement the provision of this act. So, annual report. So the Bucor through the DOJ and the DBM shall jointly submit to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives an annual report on the implementation of this act. This shall include information on the application of the budget for the salary and other benefits provided under this act. So the DBM, in consultation with the Bucor through the DOJ, shall periodically review and adjust every 5 years. So the rates of base pay, taking into consideration labor productivity, consumer price index, oil price, and other similar economic indicators as may be determined by the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA. So separability clause. So if any portion or provision of this act is declared unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity and effectivity of the other provisions not affected thereby. So, sa repealing cause, all laws, decrees, orders, rules, and regulations, and other issuances or parts thereof which are consistent with the provisions of this act are hereby deemed repealed, amended, or modified accordingly. Then last, Section 28, Effectivity Clause. The act shall take effect 15 days after its complete publication in the official gazette or in at least 2 newspapers of general circulation. So the security the custody, security, and control of prisoners. So, custody. So, kaning custody defined as the guarding of penal safekeeping. So, it involves security measures, lacking in counting routines, produces for searching prisoners and their living quarters, and prevention of contraband. So, prison security is crucial to maintaining staff and inmate safety. So, crucial ni siya into maintaining the safety of both staff and inmate in a correctional setting. So, security in prisons include but is not limited to managing uh, restrictive housing populations. So, ilang ihapon ng mga naa sa pananglitan isa ka building, ilang ihapon kung kinsa ang naa didto din sa another building. Then, classification and assessment. So, classification sa mga inmates if higher risk ba sila into kanang magpabuyag sulod sa prison or wala ra, dili gamay ra ang risk. So, managing special populations and security audits. So, security. So, is the task given to jail or prison administrators and custodial force personnel to secure the entire establishment and to keep under constant watch the movements of inmates or wards purposely to avoid involvement of detainees or prisoners for possible commission of crimes. So, tanan whole sa whole perimeter will be under watch, monitored. So, i-check gud nila ng inmates, ang mga staff, para pod safety sila. And then, mo-watch sila kung may suspicious activities ang inmates, both basig nag-conspired na ang inmate o ang staff, they will be watch and kanang supervise. Then, foremost to prevent any mass jailbreaks. So, maglantag yun sa watch out yun sila sa kanang basig na mag-riot sulod and bloody gang wars among them while under confinement. So, di man gid na iwasan nga na naagi magkapariha panalitan gangster kas gawas, then sugat kag another gangster nga kontra din ninyo, so magka gubot yun sa sulod. So, ning mga guards mag-watch gid sila sa every movement sa mga inmates. So, control. It involves supervision of prisoners to ensure punctual and orderly movement to and from the dormitories. So, from transferring ka sa dorm to the activity kanang area, recreational area or kanang mangaon mo. So, dapat in order yun para dili yun magka gamayng sikil, maggubot na. So, places of work, church, hospitals, and recreational facilities in accordance with the daily schedule. So, ma-supervise gid sila from transferring to another building to hospitals, church, and recreational facilities. You will be under watch. So, care and treatment of prisoners. So, muni ang basic principles for the treatment of prisoners. So, all prisoners shall be treated with the respect due to their inherent dignity and value as human beings. So, abi kay nakasala na siya sa gawas, dili na nimo siya tratuhon as tawo. So, dapat tratuhon pud gyapon nimo siya as tawo. Dili ra kay kriminal ra gyud siya. Kay napod bayay feelings ang tao, so mausab ra iyang behavior, mausab. Hopefully, mausab siya sa sulod sa prison. There shall be no discrimination on the grounds of race, color, sex, language, religion. Dapat equal ra mo tanan diri. Wala kay dili nimo i-discriminate ang isa ka kuan unsa ni isa ka inmate. So religion, political, and other opinion. So opinion, national and social origin, property, birth, or other status. So, di ba, laylay man gidang mapunta sa prison na ay katong mga nasa city, na po'y uban nga katong mga taga-bukid, mga inana niya, lahi ba sila itsura kaysa tao sa naa sa city. So, dapat dili nimo sila ipang-discriminate or unsa ba dira nga maka-degrade sa iyaho as a human being. So it is, however, desirable to respect the religious beliefs and cultural precepts of the group to which prisoners belong whenever local conditions so require. So dapat dili nimo salig kay lahi-lahi bantag religion, Christians, Muslims, English ni Kristo. So dapat i-respect po nimo ang ilahong mga religion. So the responsibility of prisons for the custody of prisoners and for the protection of society against crime shall be discharged in keeping with the state's other social objectives and its fundamental responsibilities for promoting the well-being and development of all members of society. So number 5 is except for those limitations that are demonstrably necessitated by the fact of incarceration, all prisoners shall retain the human rights and fundamental freedoms set out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and where the state concerned is a party, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and the optional protocol thereto, as well as such other rights are set out in other United Nations covenants. So, number 6, all prisoners shall have the right to take part in cultural activities and education aimed at the full development of the human personality. So, muni na sila yung mga programs ba ng prison education. To mga general and general academic education na sila na provided na sila na. Seven is efforts addressed to the abolition of solitary confinement as a punishment. So, or to the restriction of its use should be undertaken and encouraged. So, ang kaning solitary confinement at least pag huna-hunaon sa nila ang kinsa nilang hatagan ani kaning solitary confinement, since makakuan gid siya sa mental health sa isa ka inmate. So, conditions shall be created enabling prisoners to undertake meaningful remunerated employment which will facilitate their reintegration into the country's labor market and permit them to contribute to their own financial support and to that of their families. So prisoners shall have access to the health services available in the country without discrimination on the grounds of their legal situation. So sa usa ka correctional facility na ginay infirmary or kanang hospital para pod if naa sila something sa ilang health, then they will be accommodated. Dili na sila moadto og layo nga hospital nara sa duol. So with the participation and help of the community and social institutions, and with due regard to the interests of victims, favorable conditions shall be created for the reintegration of the ex-prisoner into society under the best possible conditions. So the above principles shall be applied impartially. So release of prisoners. So parole, also known as provisional release or supervised release or conditional release, is a form of early release of a prison inmate where the prisoner agrees to abide by certain behavioral conditions, including checking in with their designated parole officers, or else they may be rearrested and returned to prison. So, in exchange for parole, ang mga inmates is they have to uh, report to their parole officer. So, kung dili sila mag-report, then dili ma-arrested na po sila balik. So, balik sila sa prison. So the differs greatly from pardon, amnesty, and commutation of sentence in that parolees are still considered to be serving their sentences and may be returned in prison if they violate the conditions of their parole. So they are still serving the sentence. So what is executive clemency? So it refers to the commutation of sentence. Conditional pardon and absolute pardon may be granted by the president upon the recommendation of the board. So commutation of sentence. It is the reduction of the period of a prison sentence. So what is conditional pardon? So it is the conditional exception of a guilty offender for the punishment imposed by a court. So, kaning conditional pardon is, ang makagrant ra nimo ani is ang president. Then, para, like, you can appeal sa pardon if, as a conditional pardon, if pananglit, magsabot mo sa government, sa authority nga, muhatag kag crucial nga information. Pananglit ikaw is kabalo ka sa mga syndicates, nakaila ka sa mga names. So magkuan ka in exchange for the pardon, you will be exchanging information. So imong ihatag ang names, magkuan ka murag ikaw mo ilahong asset kanang informer. So imong iingon ilang name, ang asa sila gapuyo, anana. So what is absolute pardon? So it is the total extinction of the criminal liability of the individual to whom it is granted without any condition whatsoever, resulting to full restoration of his civil rights. So kani di ba kaning conditional pardon kay naay mga conditions. For example, ang government mangayo sila sa mga names kung kinsa pa tong mga tawhana nga dagkog mga kanang grabe ilang mga crimes, then moto inyong exchange. Well, sa kaning absolute pardon wala nay conditions, wala nay mga terms and conditions pa, diretso na ni absolute pardon na ni. Ang makagrant ra nimo ani is ang president. So, temporary release. Under a certain circumstances, prisoners may be able to get a temporary release. So, release is granted on a case-by-case basis. So, dili ra sila pasagad o hatag nimo temporary release. So, it is a case-by-case. So, depende kung unsa imong nabuhat. Mga temporary release could be for a funeral, family visit, or a home visit. So, mo appeal ka for temporary release kay naay naay namatay sa imong family members sa ganan ka mo attend sa funeral. So tagaan ka ani nila, mo issue sila or mo visit ka sa imong family nga naay na sick or na sakit or a home visit ra and ana. So temporary release is also granted when the prisoner is eligible and the release meets certain objectives. So, for example, to assist in the prisoner's rehabilitation and their successful return to the community, such as learning practical living skills in the community, to compassionate or humane treatment of the prisoner or their family, such as a funeral, family visit, or a visit to a sick relative. So good conduct time allowance, so GCTAs, and then prohibited acts subjects to disciplinary actions. So Republic Act 10592 or the good conduct time allowance uh, law allows for a reduction of sentence of persons deprived of liberty, depending on how well they abide by rules and regulation inside any penal institution, rehabilitation, or detention center or any other local jail. So this law in relation to Republic Act 7659, death penalty law, reportedly does not cover PDL who have been convicted of heinous crimes as enumerated in RA 7659. So these crimes were considered punishable by death for being grievous, odious, and hateful offenses, and which by reasons of their inherent or manifest wickedness, viciousness, atrocity, and perversity are repugnant and outrageous to the common standards and norms of decency and morality. So the application of the GCTA law resulted to the supposed erroneous release of at least 1,914 inmates. So a large majority of which already surrendered or returned to government custody at the behest of President Duterte. So under the Republic Act number 10592, so persons deprived of their liberty are given time allowances for showing good conduct while in prison, for participating in work, literacy, skills, and moral values development program, which results in the reduction of his or her incarceration. So in doing so, Republic Act number 10592 seeks to redeem and uplift valuable human material towards economic and social usefulness. So level of level the field of opportunity by giving an increased time allowance to motivate prisoners to pursue a productive and law-abiding life. So 3 is implement the state policy of restorative and compassionate justice by promoting the reformation and rehabilitation of prisoners. So strengthening their moral fiber and facilitating their successful reintegration into the mainstream of society. So these are prohibited acts subject to disciplinary action. So disciplinary controls purpose efforts shall be made to instill in the minds of the PDL the concept that self-disciplines is a essential characteristic of a well-adjusted person. So kaning disciplines ilihagog kang i-form as a better person. So disciplinary control on PDL shall be firm to ensure safety and good order in prison. So breaches of discipline shall be handled objectively, and sanctions shall be executed with firmness and justice. So these are the prohibited acts that shall be subject to disciplinary action. So, for example, is participation in illegal sexual acts, or placing himself in situation or behavior that will encourage the commission of illegal sexual acts. Openly or publicly displaying photographs, pictures, drawing, or other pictorial representation of person engaging in sexual acts or actual simulated masturbation, excretory functions, or lewd or obscene exhibitions of genitals. So possessing articles would pose a threat to prison security or to the safety and well-being of PDL and staff. So giving gifts, selling, or engaging in barter with prison personnel to subject ka in disciplinary actions if you commit this na mention ako. So maligning or insulting any religious belief or group. So imong i-degrade, imong discriminate, imong disrespect kanang buhat kag actions nga tungod ra kay sa ilahong mga religious belief, then you will be subjected to disciplinary actions. Then rendering personal services to or requiring personal services from fellow PDL. So gambling, exchanging his uniform with another PDL, or wearing a uniform other than those officially issued to him, using profane, vulgar, or obscene language, or making loud or unusual noise of any kind. So kani nga mga examples will result to disciplinary actions if imo ning buhaton. So BJMP. So BJMP RA 6975, Republic Act 9263. So an act providing for the professionalization of the Bureau of Fire Protection or BFP and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology or the BJMP. So amending certain provisions or of Republic Act number 6975, providing funds thereof and for other purposes. So be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the Philippines, Congress assembled. So this act shall be known as the Bureau of Fire Protection and Bureau of Jail Management and Penology Professionalization Act of 2004. So declaration, policy, and principles. So it is declared policy of the state to maintain peace and order, protect life, liberty, and property, and to promote the general welfare or welfare essential for the enjoyment by all the people of the blessings of democracy. So moreover, it recognizes the responsibility of the state to strengthen the government capability aimed towards the strengthening of the delivery of basic services to the citizenry through the institutionalization of highly efficient, competent file and jail services. So it is provided for under Republic Act number 6975, otherwise known as the Department of the Interior and Local Government Act of 1990. So that the task of the fire protection in jail management and penology shall be the responsibility of the Bureau of Fire Protection and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, respectively. So, Philippine National Police Reform and Reorganization Act of 1998, it provides that in times of national emergency, BFP and BJMP along with the Philippine National Police shall, upon the direction of the President, assist the AFP or the Armed Forces of the Philippines in meeting the national emergency. Pananglitan na ay crisis sa country, like war. So they will be mapatawag sila in addition to the performance of their inherent functions as mandated by law. It is thereof recognized that the uniformed personnel of the BFP and the BJMP as member of the uniformed service of the government under the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG are required the same amount of sacrifice, service, and dedication like their counterparts in the PNP and AFP to carry out their respective duties to extent of risking their lives and limbs. The state shall provide for the professionalization and restructuring of the BFP and BJMP by upgrading the level of qualifications of their uniformed personnel and standardizing their base pay, retirement, and other benefits, making it par with those of PNP and AFP. So Section 3 is the organization and key positions of the BFP and BJMP. So both BFP and BJMP will be headed by chief, then will be assisted by deputy chief, two deputy chiefs. So one is for administration and one for the operation, and appointed by the president upon the recommendation of the secretary of the DILG. So with at least the rank of senior superintendent in the service. So the heads of the BFP and BJMP with the rank of director shall have the position title of chief of the fire bureau and the chief of the jail bureau. So second officers in command of the BFP and the BJMP with the rank of chief superintendent shall have the position title of deputy chief for administration of the jail bureau. Then the third is with the rank of chief superintendent shall have the position title of deputy chief for operations of fire bureau and deputy chief for operation of the jail bureau. So the fourth officers in command of BFP and BJMP with the rank of chief superintendent and shall have the respective position title of the chief of directional staff of the fire bureau and the chief of directorial staff of the jail bureau. So shall be assisted by the directors of the directorates in the respective national headquarters office with at least the rank of senior superintendent. So Section 4, professionalization and upgrading of qualification standards in the appointment of uniformed personnel to the BFP and BJMP. So no person shall be appointed as uniformed personnel of the BFP and BJMP unless he or she possesses the following minimum qualification. So kani sila is shall be a citizen of the Republic of the Philippines. Then a person of good moral character must have passed the psychiatric, psychological, drug, and physical tests for the purposes of determining his or her physical and mental health. Must possess baccalaureate degree from a recognized institution of learning, and then must possess the appropriate civil service eligibility. So must not have been dishonorably discharged or dismissed, or they must not have been convicted by any final judgment of an offense or crime involving moral turpitude, must at least 1 meter and 62 centimeters in height for male, and then 1 meter and 57 centimeters for female. So must weight not or more must not weight more or less than 5 kilograms from the standard weight corresponding to his or her height, age, and sex. So the appointment of the BFP and BJMP shall be effected in the following manners. So first is the fire jail officer to senior jail to senior fire or jail officer 4. Then fire jail inspector to fire jail superintendent. Then fire jail senior superintendent appointed by the secretary of the DLG upon recommendation of respective chief of the fire bureau or the chief of the jail bureau. Then jail or fire chief superintendent to fire jail director. So kaning section 6 is the lateral entry of officer into the BFP and BJMP. So in general, all original appointments of officers in the Fire Bureau and Jail Bureau shall commence the rank of Fire and Jail Inspector, wherein applicants for lateral entry into the BFP shall include all those with highly specialized and technical qualifications, such as but not limited to civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemists, engineers, um, chemists, architects, criminologists, certified public accountants, and so on. So, while applicants for lateral entry into the BJMP shall include all those with highly specialized and technical qualifications such as, but not limited to social workers, psychologists, teachers, nurses, dentists and engineers, doctor of medicine, members of the Philippine Bar, and chaplain shall be appointed to the rank of fire or jail senior inspector in their particular technical service. So treatment of special needs or unusual offenders, so emergency plans, movement, transfer of prisoners and detainees. Inmates with special needs means inmates who are identified as suicidal, mentally ill, developmentally disabled, seriously or chronically ill, who are physically disabled, who have trouble performing activities of daily living, or who are a danger to themselves. So the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners provides that so far as possible, separate institution or separate sections of an institution shall be used for the treatment of the different classes of prisoners. So the BJMP has adhered to this principle since its creation. However, the rise in criminality in recent years, coupled with the passage of more stringent laws, especially for drug-related offenses, and the adoption of better crime solution methods, resulted in a marked increase in inmate population in BJMP detention centers. So the lack of funds to expand existing jails or to build new ones aggravates the situation. So this rule therefore provides guidance to wardens and jail officers treating unusual inmates or those with special needs given the limited resources. So the basic policy is, as a general rule, inmates with special needs should not be held in jails with other regular inmates. So, for example, female inmates should be confined in institutions separate from those used for the males. Then male youth offenders should not be mixed with adult offenders. So kung i-mix ning mga youth sa mga adult, then may possibility nga ilang ipang bully ning mga youth offenders. sa mga adults. So, however, given the reality related to budget constraints, increasing inmate population, insufficient facilities, and inadequately equipped detention homes, wardens and jail officers shall endeavor to provide the best arrangement they can make for such inmates. So, in keeping with this rule, it is assumed that the inmates have been properly evaluated and classified for this purpose. So, privileges of detainees and sentenced prisoners. So, the Supreme Court upheld in 1974's rules in McDonnell that the constitutional rights of inmates are severely restricted. So, not all constitutional rights are surrendered, and the law also provides inmates with rights concerning their health and welfare while incarcerated. So, in addition to the rights they are afforded, prisoners may be granted certain privileges based on behavior. So, kung binutan ka sulod, then you may be given certain privileges. So, mag-base gid ang kani nga privileges sa imong behavior, criminal history, and other factors. So, an important distinction exists between rights and privileges. So, unsa may nakalahian nila unsa pud ang meaning ani. So, rights are guaranteed by law, while privileges can be granted to individual inmates as long as discipline and security are maintained. So, kaning privilege naara aning mga naara ni sa authority kung tagaan ka aning kuan kaning pribilehiyo, pero kanang rights it is guaranteed by the law. So, law gyud gahatag nimo rights. So, privileges can be revoked by a prison or jail staff, but rights cannot be. So, makuha ang privileges while ang rights is dili gyud makuha. Kanang rights imo ginang rights as a human being. Then, as provided for the Constitution, the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. An individual through in prison does not lose his inherent rights to dignity and his other human rights, regardless of what he or she may have done or whatever political convictions he may have. So, right to be free from personal abuse and right to be protected against the following. So, any deprivation of his basic needs under normal situation. So, for example, right niya nga kuan nang tagan siya nagid sila food ana water then imo nang kuanon imo siya pagutmon din imo tagag tubig. So, imong gi abuse iyahong right. So, corporal punishment, use of physical force. So, kabalo man ta nga dapat dili gyud kanang pasakitan ang mga prisoner. For example, kanang bugbugon nimo ang isa ka inmate, dili na siya pwede kanang mabunog na siya ana dito. So, solitary confinement or segregation as positive measures. Rights of detainees. Right to good conduct, time allowance for good behavior. Right to have access of the following as far as practicable. So, medicine and health services. So, na sila'y right to have medicine and health services, rehabilitation program, so visitation and mail services, free legal service and materials, right to exercise his religious beliefs. So, na siya right na i-perform niya iyahong religious belief. Right to air grievances and complain through proper authorities. Right of women offenders to be personally attended, supervised by women officers. So, dili pwede nga ang mo-attend nimo kanang pananglitan kanang i-check imuhang body, dili dapat ang laki mo check, but ang bayi, mga women officer. Without prejudice to male doctors, so if as much as possible, if na ay female nga doctor na para maka-check sa mga female inmates, then it should be the female doctors. Nurses and social welfare officers from carrying out their professional duties in the institution for women. So, for example, uh, i-check sila ilahong koan, i-check ilahong mental health, ilang physical, i-check sila. So, dapat ang mo check nila is mga women doctors or women nurses. So, rights of foreign nationals to communicate with their diplomatic and consular representative. So, the regional rehabilitation centers for youth. So, the RRCY is facility designed to provide intensive treatment in a residential setting for the rehabilitation of children in conflict with the law, whose sentences have been suspended. It serves as a nurturing out-of-home placement for children in need for rehabilitation. So, the RRCY provides institutional rehabilitation for CICL, or the children in conflict with the law. Community-based rehabilitation programs are also being provided by the DSWD. Whenever necessary, the RRCY links its center-based service to community-based programs, or the programs provided in a community setting developed for the purpose of intervention and diversion. So from formal court proceedings as well as rehabilitation of the CICL for final reintegration into his family and community. The support and participation of the immediate family and community is valuable. Hence, RRCY harness the community support structures outside of the family. So community structures are tapped and mobilized to contribute their resources to the treatment and reintegration of offenders and strengthening their families. So ilang general objective is to render treatment and rehabilitative services to children in conflict with the law in the Cordillera Administrative Region or CAR to enhance their psychological, emotional, and social well-being. So, muna lang specific objectives, which is assist the children in conflict with the law in gaining insight into their behavior and attitudes to help them become more productive and responsible individuals. Then, i-redirect ilang behavior, attitudes, and help them become more productive and responsible individuals. Then, provide opportunities to acquire social occupational skills and improve self-image, and provide activities that would help them develop trust for other persons. So muna ilang specific objectives. Then their programs and services. So ang RRCY provide sila home environment and a group living arrangement with well-balanced, organized, and non-formal activities para sa mga kaning children in conflict with the law. So, under these services, the RRCY rehabilitation team attends to the basic needs of the youth like food and clothing, as well as referral for medical and dental care. So, they are provided that. So, the children in conflict with the law are also given the opportunities to engage in income generating activities so that they could earn and save for their future. So kuan pud sila kanang they are also providing kanang income generating activities for at least maka-income sila kwarta to provide for themselves and also to provide sa kanang maka-help pud sila sa ilang family. So specifically CICL are provided the following. So treatment interventions. So counseling services, therapy, then behavioral modification, then therapeutic community. So then we have the counseling services, amo ni siya. Kaya na sila. Then the Child and Youth Welfare Code. So the child is one of the most important assets of the nation. So every effort should be exerted to promote his welfare and enhance his opportunities for a useful and happy life. So we all know that the children are the fundamental kanang sila mo'y crucial sa kanang importante sila sa society kay since sila na may mo pagdako ana nila sila na may mo mga workers, may mo silang doctors, may mo silang nurse, may mo silang police officers, may mo silang mga leaders and so on. So the child is not a mere creature of the state. Hence his individual traits and aptitude should be cultivated to the utmost insofar as they do not conflict with the general welfare. So kaning mga youth or mga children dapat ikuan yun siya kanang padakon siya as a good person yun para dili siya magka-conflict and mag-cause siyang trouble sa general welfare sa community. So the molding of the character of the child start at home. So dira gyud mag-start kay dira gyud sila ma-form iyang character, iyang attitude, iyang personality. So kung dili tsada ang pagpadako niya, dako nga chances nga magpabuyag siya sa community. And then this will result to mapriso siya, kita siyag away, So consequently, every member of the family should strive to make the home a wholesome and harmonious place as its atmosphere and condition will greatly influence the child's development. So as I said, if ang home nimo, ang balay na gipuy-an sa bata nga kuan didto siya gadako siya didto nga puro raaway, puro dili siya kuan peaceful, dili wholesome ang place, then naay possibility nga ma-develop ang iyahong kuan kanang dili maayo ang pagpadako, then bati pa ang environment sa sulod sa balay. So makuan siya kanang dira na mosulod ang mag-drugs na ang bata and kanang magpabuyag na siya sige. So hantod pagdako sa bata mahimo na buluyagon na pud siya apil sa society. So the code shall be known as the Child and Youth Welfare Code. So it shall apply to persons below 21 years old. So 21 years of age except those emancipated in accordance with law, child or minor or youth as used in this code shall refer to such as persons. So mo ni ang rights sa mga child, sa children, all children. So every child is endowed with the dignity and worth of human being from the moment of his conception as generally accepted in medical parlance and has thereof the right to be born as well. So from the moment of his or her conception, then na siya right to be born. Then, every child has the right to a wholesome family, a family life that will provide him with love, care, and understanding. So, kaning sa household, if absent ang love, care, and understanding, then the child will be most likely kaning bataa ma-misguided siya kanang wala siya kabalo kanang iyang behavior is mga usually negative na, so daghan siya behavior nga prone to criminality. So without the parents guidance, so masalikwa gyud ang bata. So guidance and counseling and moral and material security. So the independent or abandoned child shall be provided with the nearest substitute for a home. So mapunta sila sa orphanage ani, or mapunta sila mga foster parents, or maybe mapunta sila sa kanang mga nearest or close relatives. Dito sila mapunta kanang mga bata nga gipang abandon or mga gipang neglect sa mga parents. So every child has the right to be a well-rounded development of his personality to the end that he may become a happy, useful, and active member of society. So the gifted child shall be given opportunity and encouragement to develop his special talents. So dapat ma-encourage siya and supported for his special talents. The emotionally disturbed or socially maladjusted child shall be treated with sympathy and understanding and shall be entitled to treatment and competent care. The physically or mentally handicapped child shall be given the treatment and education and care required by his particular condition. So every child has the right to a balanced diet, adequate clothing, sufficient shelter, proper medical attention, and all the basic physical requirement of a healthy and vigorous life. So in order for the child to have a healthy and vigorous life, child must have kaning balanced diet, adequate clothing, sufficient shelter, and proper medical attention. So since dili man tanan nga maka-provide ani, so dagang bata gyud ang mga luoy kay situations, like dili sila ka-afford og mga clothes, dili sila ka-afford og kanang di sila kakaon 3 times a day ana. So dili pod sila kanang wala pod sila kanang di sila ka-afford for medical check-ups ang inana mga bata luoy kayo. Then every child has the right to be brought up in an atmosphere of morality and rectitude for the enrichment and the strengthening of his character. So every child has the right to an education commensurate with his abilities and to the development of his skills for the improvement of his capacity for service to himself and to his fellow men. So, kuan man ta naman tay free education, so muni na ay right ang every child ani free to get educated kay na naman tay mga uh, nanatay public schools, then sa college pod free ang tuition, so pwede sila maka-attend dira. So every child has the right to full opportunities for safe and wholesome recreation and activities. So individual as well as social for the wholesome use of his leisure hours. So every child has the right to protection against exploitation, improper influences, hazards, and other conditions or circumstances prejudicial to his physical, mental, emotional, and social and moral development. So naman tay law nga ga-protect sa mga bata like DSWD, then naapod tay katong kanang abuse sa mga bata, inanaapod tay law nga i-protect sila ana from mga abusers. So every child has the right to live in a community, in a society that can offer him an environment free from pernicious influences and conductive to the promotion of his health and the cultivation of his desirable traits and attributes. So every child has the right to the care, assistance, and protection of the state. So particularly when his parents or guardians fail or unable to provide him with his fundamental needs for growth, development, and improvement. So if ang parent is dili na sila ka-provide aning mga basic needs para sa bata, then the state or the government will step up. So muna ni na sila mga programs na kuan or panalitan sa mga orphanage or sa mga charity man ana. So every child has the right to an efficient and honest government that will deepen his faith in democracy and inspire him with the morality of the constituted authorities both in their public and private lives. Then 12 is every child has the right to grow up as a free individual to grow up as a free individual in an atmosphere of peace, understanding, tolerance, and universal brotherhood with the determination to contribute his share in the building of a better world. So death row. So death row is also known as condemned row. It's a place in a prison that houses inmates awaiting execution after convicted of a capital crime. The term is also used figuratively to describe the state of awaiting execution. So kaning phrase is like being on death row. So even in places where no special facilities or separate unit for condemned inmates exist. So in the United States, after a person is found guilty of a capital offense in death penalty states, the judge will give the jury the option of imposing a death sentence or life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. So it is them to a jury. It is up to the jury to decide whether to give the death sentence. This is usually has to be a unanimous decision. So if the jury agrees on death, the defendant will remain on death row during appeal and habeas corpus procedures, which may continue for several years. So if kuan na ka, imong punishment is death, naana ka sa death row ana, then wala ka kabalo kung kanusa ka when will kanusa ka mamatay. Like sa nara ka nagpungko ra ka sa death row, nagtalay pa mo ana. Nay uban na ana sa kuan sa nay instances na ugma dayon kuan ilahon, then pero napoy uban nga maabot og pila ka years, nagay uban nga decades. So muna sila. Then makabalo na lang ka nga ugma na di ay ang imuhong D-Day. So na mangutanan na sila unsa imong ganahan nga meal, like last meal nimo. So tagaan ka nilag option ana, tagaan ka nilag since last day na nimo or last night na nimo, tagaan ka nilag at least makapalipay nimo, which is kanang unsa man nga meal imong ganahan, mo offer sila na. I don't know if Philippines do this before since nga na-abolish naman ang death penalty. Wa ta kabalaon sa ilahong way of sa kanang death row. Well, sa United States na sila inato kanang mo offer sila last meal nimo inana. So, last topic is the rule on the right of amparo. So, the petition for a right of amparo is a remedy available to any person whose right to life, liberty, and security is violated or threatened with violation by an unlawful act or omission of a public official or employee or of a private individual or entity. So, the right shall cover extra legal killings and enforce the disappearances or threats thereof. So, who may file? So, the petition may be filed by the aggrieved party or by any qualified person or entity in the following order. So, any member of the immediate family, namely the spouse, children, and parents of the aggrieved party. So, two is the any ascendant or descendant or collateral relative of the aggrieved party within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity or affinity in default of this mentioned in the preceding paragraph, or any concerned citizen, organization, association, or institution if there is no known member of the immediate family or relative of the aggrieved party, so they can file for the rule on the right of amparo. So that's all for the module 4. Thank you for listening and thank you so much. Poy, unsaan ni Poy?